It's these two guys.
These two guys.
It's these two guys.
Hey, George Henry here.
And Larry Richardson.
We're these two guys, and we have a very special guest joining us tonight from the nationally syndicated show Into the Parabnormal. Jeremy Scott is joining us. Jeremy, how are you doing?
Hey guys, how are we doing?
Oh, we're doing fine.
Great. Just got done doing my show, and now we're jumping onto your show. I talk about this stuff a couple nights a week, and so it's always good to sit down with those who might be somewhat interested in these subjects that I talk about. So how are you guys doing?
We're good.
Doing fine.
I thought it would be great to have you on and to kind of let our people know a little bit about what you're about. Now, you and I have a little history together. We worked at KXL together back in the day, and you were producing a show that was maybe not exactly your show, but similar to it. Tell me a little bit about that.
I have worked on several shows throughout the years, producing talk radio, local, politically based talk radio, a little bit of national thrown in, and I've been involved with shows that also delve into the paranormal or the conspiracy realm. And of course, I am a radio guy myself. It really started with listening to radio late at night. Since we're both here in Oregon, and we did work at a station here in Portland, I was a fan back in the day of the basketball team, the Portland Trailblazers, and so I used to listen to their games in the evenings. And when I was supposed to be to sleep, I had one of those pillow speakers where you could turn away, so mom and dad would open up the door and they just make sure that my head was on the pillow. They didn't come around to the other side of the room to make sure my eyes were closed. Of course, they were always usually open because I was just flabbergasted with what I was hearing on the radio with a program by the name of Coast to Coast AM with the late great Art Bell that used to come on late at night at 10 o'clock local time after the long post-game show would wrap up. And then, of course, if you missed any of that, it would come on replay 4 hours later, and it was like time tripping. So sometimes you would wake up and you would start to hear parts of the conversation over again, or you would be able to hear the parts that you missed. And there was just something about that program and the subjects that Art Bell discussed and the way that he discussed them that had me immediately intrigued just with talk radio in general. Now, I didn't want to do political talk radio, so I kind of had to find a niche. When I first started doing this, podcast was really just becoming popular, so I tried different kind of shows. I was interested, as we all are, in TV broadcasts, and so I had my favorites, and I would bring directors and producers and actors and actresses on. And that was just kind of saturated with, there was a lot of people doing the pop culture and the entertainment stuff. I tried a little bit of political talk, and I thought, look, this is what everybody else is doing. And it quickly became something that was going to divide the audience. If they didn't see things the same way that I saw, they might just check out. And so I kind of went back to my roots. And I asked myself, what is it that I actually want to do a show about? What do I want to talk about? And it's these subjects: UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot. If you've listened to the program, that's in our theme song. And George is a big part of the program. With full disclosure, George came on board in, I believe it was 2021, because I needed some help putting together the broadcast, doing as many shows during the week as we do. There's a lot that goes into it. There's research material. There's audio production that goes into it. We also have our own newscast. And having worked with George and just knowing his amazing talents, we've been working together now for 4 years. And George is a big part of the program. You hear him doing the news at the bottom of the hour, once an hour. And this is not mainstream news. This is paranormal news. This is stuff about the strange and the unexplained and the conspiracies and the conspiracy theories. So not the type of stuff that you're going to hear in the mainstream news. And George, I just want to say publicly that you have done just such an amazing job Previously, our news guys both passed away.
Oh,
So
I hope this one doesn't happen.
Let's not keep that streak alive.
That's right.
Has any of them ever showed back up as guests?
Did you have any of them show back up as guests? Yeah.
Maybe. We have had a few EVPs, I think, sneak through the audio from time to time. So
Jeremy,
hard to tell, you don't really know what you're dealing with here sometimes, which makes the subjects that we talk about fascinating.
So what, you obviously you produced Lars Larson. I think Markley Van Camp. You had your hand in that for a while too. But when did you realize that you were into the paranormal stuff? The ghosts, the Bigfoot, and all that. When did you start thinking about that as a young man or a child?
So the first show was the summer of 2015, and I tried to come up with a catchy name. And when you think you want to do a podcast, you're normally doing it by yourself. You bring in a couple of friends and you ask their opinion, and maybe you get some help with people who help you out with graphics, or they suggest a name or whatever. I'm sure you guys in your infancy of doing this podcast have kind of bounced ideas off of others as well.
Right.
And so we did a lot of that back in the beginning. It was Parabnormal Radio. I know, not the most sexiest name when we first started. And that was in 2015. We did about 4 months of shows, and then a very interesting thing happened where I got approached by somebody who had been helping Art Bell after his Sirius XM show. So he did Coast to Coast, kind of retired from that a couple of times, came back and did weekends, had a falling out, and then went to Sirius XM, had another falling out with Sirius XM, and then was on the sideline for a little while a online network for him was built in the background. And then once he finally came on and started doing that show, before he retired and handed it off to someone again, who is now no longer doing a show, there was a gentleman who was doing the newscast, much like George does the newscast for us. It was not my idea to do a paranormal newscast. I got that idea from Art Bell. Art Bell did a segment called Dark Matter News, which was like a 5-minute segment. Can you imagine doing 5 minutes of this news, George? I mean, we can sometimes barely fill a minute.
Right, yeah, right.
And here this newscast was 5 minutes. Well, this gentleman, had a falling out. It seems like Art had a falling out with a lot of people. I mean, I'm just being honest. He had a falling out with a lot of people throughout his radio career. And this was another one of those instances. And so I got approached to actually do a Monday through Friday, 5-night-a-week show going up against Art at the same time. And so obviously I jumped at that, but it required a move out of state. So I left KXL. I went down to rural Texas, and that was an experience in and of itself. I'll spare you the details, but it only lasted a few months. We did a couple hundred shows in that time, and I came back and I restarted my life, and we rebranded the show at that point Into the Parabnormal. A lot of times people refer to the program as Into the Paranormal because paranormal is a much more popular word than parabnormal. Well, paranormal is actually not a word, but I created it because far more things are abnormal than are paranormal. I mean, you walk down the street, I'm here in Portland, you walk down the street and I don't have to go far and I'll see something abnormal.
Yeah, right.
It doesn't make it paranormal. So it really opens up the Pandora's box to what we can discuss. For instance, on our most recent show, we delved into the police state and mass surveillance and pre-crime, which is not a not paranormal subject, but it certainly is a parabnormal subject. And so it's a play on words. I knew since 2015 that I wanted to do a paranormal show. It just took a couple of years to kind of, get it on the rails. And really, it's only been in the last couple of years that we've seen things really take off. It's almost like a 10-year process that you have to dedicate yourself to in order to have results. Now, that's unless you're a YouTube show and YouTube likes you and you hit all the metrics, and you never say anything that is going to upset the censors, because we had that problem. A lot of our shows were too controversial for YouTube, and we got kicked off of YouTube, and that was it. So we're done.
Not wanting to go too far back and focus too much on it, but just curious. But for 2015, you said because I'm a big TV buff, and movies and TV shows and stuff like that is one of my favorite things. And you mentioned that you dabbled in that before. Is there one guest that you had that you worked with that maybe almost kept you grounded in that particular genre?
The paranormal genre?
No, before that. Before, when you said you were interviewing movie producers and people from like television.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wasn't actually much interested in it. To be honest, I was still in the phase of trying to find my niche. I was trying to find out what worked and what didn't, and that's a lot when you're doing podcasting. Is you're trying to find out what works and what doesn't.
Right.
And you certainly can't do what everybody else is doing. You have to find something that's unique. And so I thought, yeah, that would be cool, because people who then are interested in hearing these guests, well, maybe they'll promote their appearance, and maybe we could get some additional listeners that way. Much like when I started in radio, which I thought I wanted to be a DJ, and I realized I didn't want to be a DJ because you only talk for 1 minute and 20 seconds an hour, and I'd much rather talk for 40 minutes an hour than 1 minute 20. It was more an evolution. I didn't have any big name guests. I think the one of the directors or producers of the program Prison Break, which you may be familiar back in the day.
Yep.
I mean, this was probably early 2000s. It was a show on Fox about two brothers who were in jail, and one of them went in basically to break the other one out. And I had somebody on. I actually had one of the people from the TV show Forensic Files on the program. But yeah, it was just something that didn't stick. I quickly went on to something else, and it was more about finding what worked and what didn't, and what people were interested in, and what I wanted to talk about. And quite frankly, this is what interests me. The subjects that we talk about on this podcast.
What are some of the most intriguing guests that you've had since you've started Paranormal? I've kind of watched it from the back seat there, doing the news and stuff, but I'd really like to know, like, who really caught your attention and made you say, or made you ask the questions that sparked your interest. Who was the guest that you came on with that you thought really brought this to light for you?
I don't know that it's fair to say that there was any one particular guest. There certainly have been some over the years that have our conversations have stuck with me a bit more. Some of the more emotional interviews we've done with alien abductees, people who say that they have been taken, from their home or whatnot and beamed up to a ship. One of the most famous of those was Travis Walton, the Snowflake, Arizona abduction of 1975, which of course inspired Fire in the Sky. Not necessarily accurate as far as what actually happened in his story, but Travis came on the program several years ago along with the boss of the crew, that he was hired to do this logging job out in the Sitgreaves National Forest in Snowflake, Arizona. And it was a long day, and they were headed down the mountain. And the long and short of it is, there's this beam of light that comes through the forest. And Travis, being the inquisitive person that he was, hopped out of the vehicle against the advice of everybody with him and went straight at this object. And before too long, a beam of light shot down and zapped him. And his coworkers thought he was dead. So they left him there to go get help, and Travis was not seen for almost a week before he showed up in town along a highway where there was a payphone, and he was able to call his family, who came and got him. And of course that started a whole media circus with the abduction, because every single one of those members on the crew were interrogated. They were accused of murdering Travis, that they were complicit. I mean, just some really, really evil stuff. They were drugged through the mud. And I've had a couple of opportunities to talk with Travis, once remotely and then once in person. Once a year, we go down to McMinnville, Oregon, and we do the McMinimans UFO Fest broadcast, which is in a famous town where there was a UFO sighting in 1950. And so we celebrate that every year, and Travis joined us a couple of years. He's probably, I don't know how you get a bigger guest than Travis Walton on the show. There's some of these other people who have researched, and we have just about anybody who you could possibly imagine on the program: psychics, paranormal investigators, people who have seen Bigfoot, they've experienced ghosts or apparitions, UFOs, been taken on board craft. We have scientists, researchers who are, looking into black holes. There really is no limits to what we discuss on the program. And the thing about this is not every show is a winner. You think the guest is going to be really good. We screen them. We get a bio from them. We get a list of subjects. Maybe we have a conversation with them before, or we go and listen to some of their past episodes. But you guys know, not every show is a winner, right?
This is true.
Yeah.
Now, being from Oregon, I'm assuming that probably one of the most sought after entities, or I guess mysteries, probably is Bigfoot, right? I mean, Oregon's known for a lot of Bigfoot sightings. I mean, you drive from one city to the next, there's cardboard cutouts or wooden cutout structures of Sasquatch or Bigfoot. There we go. There's our guy at that exact same pose. How often do you get that? And
I mean, I've got so much memorabilia Bigfoot-wise here in the studio that I was showing on video for those who are watching the video. Actually, Washington has more Bigfoot sightings than Oregon does, as far as documented sightings. There's actually legislation, I believe, in Skamania County, Washington, that says you cannot shoot and kill a Bigfoot. I'm guessing that's admission that Bigfoot is an actual thing, because if they're saying you can't shoot Bigfoot, that must mean that it exists.
Yeah.
So a couple times, or once a year, we go out to a Bigfoot festival. We talk with the researchers. The most popular thing you're going to find at these conferences and festivals, Bigfoot related, is somebody has got footprints that they're trying to sell. These are an indentation, impression in the ground that was found. They use plaster of Paris. Normally, they whip it up. They put it in the ground. It gathers the impression, and they sell these for $40, $50 sometimes. Now, who knows if it's an actual Bigfoot foot? It's just a strange footprint. But if you ask those who have investigated this, like Dr. Jeff Meldrum, who have studied the foot morphology, some of what they're able to tell you about the structure of the foot and some of the other specimens, the scat and the hairs that they've recovered, indicate that this is not like us. Maybe it's part man and part ape or whatever, or part bear. But I've never had a Bigfoot sighting. I know a few people who actually do Bigfoot research and are actively going out and looking for this stuff. And honestly, I've not seen enough evidence to say that Bigfoot is real.
Well, it seems like you have a lot of background knowledge on Bigfoot. George was asking earlier, is that one of your favorite subjects? I mean, I never knew that Washington had more sightings than Oregon. I thought Oregon was leading the pack as far as Sasquatch sightings. Yeah. So
even your shirt.
Even your shirt. Yeah, there's a little combination there.
No, I do love the Bigfoot subject. It's one of those subjects where there's not a lot to it, but there is. I mean, you can get into the minutia of stuff, and hopefully the listeners find that interesting. But the long and short of it is, this is something that shouldn't seemingly exist, and people are seeing it. I don't know why they're seeing it. Perhaps it could be. Now, I have a theory when it comes to the paranormal, which is that a lot of this is connected. I wouldn't have said that when I first started my show in 2015, because I I was, like I said, in the exploratory phase. I was trying to find out what worked and what didn't work, and how often you should talk about any one of these subjects. And if you do a show on UFOs tonight, you probably shouldn't do one tomorrow night, but sometimes you can do that, and you got to mix in other subjects. And in doing so, I think that I have stumbled across something which is actually backed up by a lot of the books that I've read, which is that there is some sort of connection between all of these phenomena, right? There's the world that we live in, and there's a side-by-side world. There's the spirit world. There's these other dimensions, alternate realities. This shows like the Stranger Things have referred to this as the upside down. Yeah. But it's the same concept, which is basically you're stepping from one reality into the next. And I think that's what's happening with Bigfoot, which is why not everybody is seeing these. Number one, I think you have to be in the right place at the right time, and they have to be interested in you. You have to have something to offer them. Because ordinary people usually don't have these experiences over and over, and usually it takes many, many, many years to have an experience.
And yeah, we touched a little bit earlier on an earlier podcast about my experiences. I've been told I was a sensitive, and I know that I've experienced paranormals as far as ghosts, seeing entities and things of that nature. Now I've never obviously have had a Bigfoot experience. I am living as on my bucket list. Actually, it's the only item on my bucket list is to see a UFO. I've seen things that I thought were strange. I've never actually really witnessed something that I can definitively say that is a UFO. But as far as ghosts and everything, I've experienced that. Have you, in your years of doing this, what have you run across where, there's something you want to take back to the show and share with your listeners and viewers?
I've had two experiences, which is what I've shared with the listeners before. I had one experience where I was down in Texas, where it felt like there was this weight on my chest. I was laying down, I was taking a nap, and it felt like there was just this pressure on my chest. I thought that was weird, and then it kind of went away, and then a minute or so later, it looked like there was an indentation in the bed, like where someone's butt was, where they were sitting on the bed. And I'm sitting there looking at this, and there's this indentation in the bed, and then it just goes back to being flat. There's no indentation. But that's weird. I mean, this was a house that I was living in, temporarily, so I don't know any of the history there. I don't know if there was other ghosts there, but in talking with a psychic, which doing a show like this does afford me those opportunities if I have a paranormal experience or if I have questions about these, which I've got questions a mile long, I'm able to ask them and to get some personal insight on this. And what a psychic told me is that it was my late grandfather who was just checking in on me. I was thousands of miles from home and just wanted to make sure that I was okay. But they also wanted me to know that they were there, which is why I felt the pressure on my chest and why I saw the indentation in the bed. Some might just say, well, yeah, you don't know if that's a paranormal experience or not, and we don't know if the psychic just made that up. True. Another incident that I encountered was after interviewing a lady along with her husband. There's a wild story, so get ready for this. They claim that they have encountered a race of extraterrestrials known as the Ponti from the planet Pontiel who live under the Sandia Mountains in New Mexico. There's apparently a base there. If you know anything about UFO history, you know that there have been reports of bases in Dulce, up in Mount Adams in the Pacific Northwest, and other places where apparently these things reside. In this case, that's apparently where the Ponti reside, is in the Sandia Mountains in this base. I don't know how they came in contact with this race of extraterrestrials, but they did, and they claim to be communicators for them, because extraterrestrials seemingly communicate telepathically. They don't speak audibly. So I don't know how you verify that you're having a communication with an extraterrestrial unless you ask them, what are you?
Right.
Are you an extraterrestrial being? Are you a ghost? Like, what are you? And apparently they teach others how to have these experiences. They're usually known as CE1 through 5 experiences, the contact experiences that J. Allen Hynek coined, decades ago, and others have expanded on, like Stephen Greer over the years. He's one of the guys who primarily does these close encounter events where basically you're trying to summon craft to come out of the sky and either to land or to put on a show. And they teach these protocols, these Sandia Mountain folks, they teach these protocols that they say you can have communications, you can have contact. So again, just a couple of years into this, I would not say the same thing now because I believe a lot of this is real, and I don't want to have one of those experiences. And I almost got emotional when I said, can I sign up? Can I be on that list? Just kind of joking. But then they came back and they told me later in the program that I was on the list. And wow. I really started to freak out because I'm like, I don't want to have an extraterrestrial experience. I was only joking. And they told me, don't worry, you have nothing to worry about. It won't be an abduction. We won't take you. It will be pleasant. And I don't know that what happened was pleasant. I mean, as I tell you what happened, as I got up from the couch and I'm walking down the hallway, at the end of the hallway, we had a rack where we would hang our coats on, a coat rack. And sure as you know what, I think I have to, preface this, as everybody does. I was totally sober at the time, and I'm walking down the hallway, and I see what I think is a gray extraterrestrial with these two eyes. And they're not glowing eyes. They're kind of like dark eyes, the typical extraterrestrial that you think of. Not green, they're mostly gray, and this is what this one was, and usually short. I mean, it was, I want to say the coat rack was maybe 8 feet tall, and you're hanging a coat on there. You may have a couple of feet at the bottom where there's just nothing, and that's about the level where the extraterrestrial was. So the bottom of the coat and the extraterrestrial was like right here, hidden behind the coat. But I could see its eyes, and I could see its body. I could not see its feet. I don't know if it didn't have feet or if those were hidden or whatnot. And when you have one of those things, you kind of like shake your head and you're like trying to bring yourself back to reality. Like, did that happen? Am I actually seeing that? And when I did that, the thing was gone.
Now, the gold standard for me, as far as like what grays would look like, is from the movie you mentioned earlier, the Fire in the Sky. How would you compare it to that? Because those aliens scared the crap out of me. Like that was a fever dream scenario for me watching that movie and watching the whole torture and experimental scene within that movie. Given what you've seen, just to give people like a benchmark or something they can kind of compare it to, how does it compare to what you've seen in that movie?
I mean, very similar, but again, that was also dramatization. That wasn't actually what, Travis Walton saw. I mean, they looked a little bit different, but I think all of these do. Sometimes people say they see a more insectoid or reptilian kind of extraterrestrials. Others say they see more like humanoid, where they kind of look human, but they kind of don't. So there's really a variety of them. I mean, it was somewhat similar to those. I don't know if this thing had the ability. I don't know if it was actually physically there in my apartment, which if it was, it had the ability to go through walls because it was gone. I mean, it didn't go out the door or the window, or it's like a hologram where it's like a projection. And if it's a hologram, if it's a projection, they can make themselves appear like anything. Any type of extraterrestrial you've ever seen in a sci-fi movie, they would have the ability to portray themselves through that projection.
Hey, Jeremy, are there subjects that you won't take on? Are there subjects that you steer away from in the paranormal, or are you just game for whatever comes out?
Yes. I don't. There's certain subjects that I don't think, and maybe I'm making a judgment that I don't think the listeners would be interested in. So I make that judgment call. But the listeners are always, able to email me. They do email me. They tell me what they like. They tell me what they don't like. That kind of helps me frame my future shows. I love any stories of contact. I love anybody who's researched a phenomena, been to a haunted location. I tend to put more weight in those than, say, somebody who has psychic abilities or they're able to channel. I'm a little bit more skeptical of those. I'm not into the tarot cards. I'm not into like angels. There's just a few things, that I'm not interested in, and I don't think that I could do justice to. I want to be able to talk about something passionately that I know something about. I don't want to have to do 5 hours of research to do a 2-hour show and try to be interested in something I'm not. So when the listeners listen to the show and they hear me talk about something, it's because I'm legitimately interested in this.
Right.
And it's either because I'm interested in it on my own or somebody suggested it to me and I hadn't thought about it, and I looked into it and I go, wow, this is really interesting. But like I say, beginning or at the end of every show, look, it's up to you to make up your mind. You can believe or you can not believe. I don't think you have a place to tell somebody what they experienced because that was their reality. It wasn't yours. They experienced it. You didn't. But it doesn't mean you have to believe it.
Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you're kind of literally joining with the listener, right? And you guys have gone on some type of trek to investigate something that you or they might feel that's skeptical. Like they'll come to you and say, oh, I don't believe this is true, or I don't believe this or that. And then you and that person kind of like partner up maybe and just kind of, I know you don't like do the full investigation, but just kind of discuss it or kind of have a little back and forth on something that either they thought was skeptical or you thought was that you were skeptical about.
Yeah, I don't think it's my place to tell the audience what to think. I think it's my place to present the buffet, and you can eat from that buffet what you would like. Some things you're going to like, some things you're not going to like. And, if I came on the air and said something that wasn't true, and I had to backtrack, and I had to go on and correct that would not look well for me. Right. And in the world of podcasts, it's different back in the day when you were on the radio and you said something and people may remember it or they may not, but there's no recording of it. I mean, now with podcasts, everything is out there. So you really have to be careful. If you want to have credibility in this, if you just want to give your opinion, look, that's fine. An opinion is opinion. As long as you're saying that up front, this is my opinion, that's fine. But if you're going to try to base something on fact, we need a little bit of something to chew on. And so that's what I try to present to the audience is something to chew on. And look, we get to the end of the conversation and maybe we have 50 million more questions than when we started. But, that's something we can discuss on another program. What I don't want is to tell people you should think this, you should think that, this person's legit, that person's not. Because I don't have the ability to do an investigation. I've been on a ghost investigation a time or two, but I don't have the skills to be able to really say whether someone's, telling the truth or not. I just ask people, come with an open mind, listen to the story, go on your way. It's like reading a book or watching a television show. It doesn't have to be based always in fact. When somebody says, I saw a being that shape-shifted, or I saw a UFO. Do they have a picture or video of it? Yeah, probably not. So they're going to give us a description, and we can go, very interesting. Now, what I have found is through the questioning pattern, you start to find that people may not be telling the truth based on the questions you're asking. And there's basic questions. When you have an encounter, I want to know when and where and how. the who, what, when, where, and why. And sometimes people have a problem with getting into the specifics, and they start to clam up, or they say, I don't want to talk about it. A few times I've had people say, oh, well, you're going to have to buy my book. And it's like, no, 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 no. They'll buy your book when we're done with the interview, but give them the answer, damn it.
So, Jeremy, if you've piqued somebody's interest here today, how can folks get a hold of Into the Parabnormal? What are some of the ways that they can listen or watch the program that, you go ahead and throw your support out there for it?
I would say the best place is to go to our website, which is parabnormalradio.com, and that's with a B. You're probably going to want to put paranormal radio in there, but just remember to put the B between the A and the N. I don't know what's at paranormalradio.com, but if you go to parabnormalradio.com, you can find all of our shows. We've got a podcast page. You can scan that, go through the most recent episodes. We also have a search feature. You can search for a certain guest. We've also categorized all of our shows. So if you like shows about UFOs, you can find all shows about UFOs. If you like shows that are only with a specific guest, you can find those shows. And then, of course, we're also on all of the podcast apps. Any app that you might have, you can find the show there. You can type it in, listen to it, subscribe to it, and you'll get notified of the new episodes there. And also our Patreon page, which is the place to get the new episodes that are commercial free. The free episodes are months behind, so you don't want those. You want the new stuff. So you can either listen to the program live. We do the show on Wednesday nights and Friday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 Eastern. So you can listen live for free. You'll get the whole show. After that, it goes into the archive. It also airs on terrestrial radio affiliates all up and down the country. We're heard on a couple of dozen stations. Let's see, in Ohio, in New York, in Michigan, in Nebraska, and Florida. And still looking for an Oregon and Washington affiliate. So if you want to carry the program, get in touch with us on the website. We would love to have you carry the show. We just entered the radio syndication market about two and a half years ago, beginning of 2023, and things didn't really go well with the last guy. So we're with a new guy now, and they syndicate many of the top shows on the radio, and so we're in good hands. So if you can't find us on a local radio station, and our website and podcast are probably the best place to go to.
Hey, Jeremy, thank you so much. Appreciate your time. And I know you and I will be talking here soon, probably tomorrow.
Yeah, I got to send you some news, George.
All right. Hey, thank you so much for doing this. We appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
All right, take care. So that was pretty interesting.
That was fun.
He loves to talk.
Yes, he does.
He's good at it too. I guess that's why he's doing what he's doing.
It's the passion.
Yeah,
and you can tell when the passion's there.
Yeah. I wanted to get into more of the guests he has and stuff like that, but I guess he was really wanting to just talk about subject matter for the most part, which is good. If people are interested in what he does, they can certainly
check him out.
Go out there and check him out.
Or if you have comments, you can always ask your questions to us, or we can ask of him, and we can bring it back for maybe even a part 2.
Yeah, maybe even a part 2, and we'll get things worked out from there. But thanks for tuning in again. And again, if you have an idea for a subject you'd like to hear about, like he was saying, he was kind of finding his niche and what he liked to do. Larry and I are lucky that we have a wide variety of things that we're into.
Yes,
so we don't have, and with all the experience that I've used with doctors and lawyers and politicians and musicians and artists and stuff like that, I mean, we can definitely have years and years of this kind of stuff to do from.
Agreed. Even the upside down pineapple and
the upside down pineapple
and pink flamingos. I heard is another one.
Yeah. I was thinking about that. I was thinking, you remember the upside down pineapple cake?
Yeah.
I wonder. All this time I wonder, does that have a, if you got served one of those, does that have a special meaning to it?
Yes. Here we go. Now we get sued by Arsenio Hall's lawyer by saying things that make you go,
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
But yeah, and there were some things that were happening in even in the news today, and some things that I were thinking about that said, well, this would make a great subject for that down the road.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But Jeremy Scott has Into the Parabnormal, and you can get him at parabnormal.com.
Like paranormal,
Abnormal.
Abnormal.
Yeah. All right, Larry. That's another one. Take care. Later. Peace. Hey, don't forget to like and subscribe on our YouTube channel. You can also check us out on Spotify, Amazon, and Apple Podcast. We'll also have some merchandise coming up for you here in the next couple of weeks, so stay tuned for that. Thanks for joining in. Watch us again for another great adventure of these two guys.